Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
Republican leaders reach a budget deal. Lawmakers pave the way for energy exploration, and gun rights advocates taste legislative victory this week. Hello, I'm Kelly McCullen. The passage of what legislative Republicans call their tax reform package that happened last week led to a deal on an overall $20 billion state budget bill this week.
The state budget will top $20.6 billion between July 2013 and July 2014. Some provisions are that it places a $250 million deposit in the state's rainy day reserve fund, sets aside $150 million to repair state-owned buildings, and prepares for Republican tax changes that reduce next year's state revenue by about $87 million in 2014 and an estimated $437 million in 2014-2015. The revenue reduction is partially offset by ending some tax credit exemptions and placing $137 million in tobacco settlement money into the general fund.
We want to ensure that we have funds in the budget if something were to happen to the economy in the future, or if we were to have a large storm or some other natural disaster. We want to ensure that North Carolina is prepared.
K through 12, the community colleges and the UNC system, of which UNC-TV is part of the UNC system, consume the bulk of the state budget. It's been the historical trend. Public schools will receive nearly $11 million to cover growing student enrollment, but lose nearly the same amount as families take advantage of new public school vouchers to pay private school tuition.
Moving public funds into private vouchers to fund private education is a bad thing. The layoff of teachers' assistants is not good for the growth of our children.
Teacher assistant funding drops 21%, or $110 million, leaving behind $450 million for TAs in 2014. The Excellent Schools Act receives $18 million. It moves teachers from guaranteed tenure towards employment contracts and merit pay for meeting classroom goals.
Speaker of the House Tom Tillis joins us. It's been a money session, hasn't it?
Yes, it has, between tax reform, getting the budget right, and I'm proud of the result.
Budget, you say, is right. Was tax reform right? Because I remember hearing all kinds of tales of there was going to be dramatic reform of this tax code, and it still has some progressive elements as we finish up a deal here and end this session.
Well, I think what we had to do first was simplify. I think when you really looked at it, we ran through all the scenarios, dating back to the Rucho plan, we recognized that there's only so much the average taxpayer business could absorb. So we thought simplifying first, bringing the rate down, and then we can build on that, start looking at broadening the base. And that's what I'm most excited about in terms of tax reform. And we are taking more burden off businesses, off of taxpayers, and putting that money back into the economy. That's good.
Now, when you were finalizing the state budget bill and you had tax reform, were you simply waiting to see how much tax reform would cost before finalizing that budget?
We had to, because it's all about availability. You need to know how much money you can expect to get, and also prepare for surprises, like the $500 million surprise we had over the last 6 months with Medicaid. So we had to make sure we had adequate revenues for reserves, the other things, so that we could put the foundation in place. After that, the budget moved very quickly.
I was looking at that second year of the budget, $460 million.
That's right.
You're calling it non-growth. Your critics are going to call it cuts.
Right.
State budget's going to be less. Are you sure it's going to be that? What's your margin of error on that in terms of reduced revenue for the state coming in?
I think we're pretty close. We've proven over the last 3 years that we know how to forecast, unlike the leadership that I served under in the minority. We've done it right. You take a look at the projections prior to those 3 years and what we've done. We're getting the numbers right. And you need to understand, the average citizen needs to understand, we're not spending less this year in the budget than we did the prior year. It's more or less the rate of growth, and we've gotten that under control. It's exactly what the federal government has failed to do and needs to do.
Medicaid seems, you seem to dial in every budget, or last budget you did, you come back, you want a couple $100 more million. Will that always be an elusive target or do you feel like you're zeroing in on what the growth rates are going to be heading out?
I think a lot of these are surprises through mismanagement, accounting errors, a lot of really what I think are management and oversight issues that I have the confidence that the governor's putting the right people in place to get that under control.
You got eugenics in this bill.
That's right.
$10 million.
It's $10 million. The plan design's a little bit different, but it allows us to be able to identify those eugenics victims and then pay it out based on that $10 million allocation. I'm glad we're going to put this behind us. It's a very dark chapter in North Carolina's history. It's going to be good that this legislature has actually taken the step to put it behind us.
Do you foresee the state going out finding people to pay, or do you foresee people trying to apply and then prove that they are who they say they are?
It will be a combination of both. We already have somewhere around 180 certified eugenics victims, people who had forcible sterilization from state agency through the Eugenics Board. We've got a process in place that works, and we've got a 2-year period where we can identify these other victims and then provide the compensation that we've appropriated.
You gave in on the Phil Berger Plan for Excellent Schools Act, merit pay, going off contracts, tenure's gone for teachers.
We did accept the Senate position on tenure. The school grading was a part of it. The Senate accepted our recommendation to delay it for a year so we can transition to the new plans. We spent a lot of time with the superintendents to try and make sure that their voice was heard. So the Senate did accept some compromises in their bill, the Excellent Schools Act. We baked it into the budget.
Do Republicans now own the economy in this state? Do you own the process? Is it fixed, as you say you kept preparing the Democratic so-called mess?
I think anytime you get elected, you own it. Now, the question as to whether or not you're responsible for the mess you've inherited is a subject of political debate every couple of years, right? But we're already seeing very positive signs. Job creation numbers, unemployment rate that seems to be trending away from the national norm for the first time since 2009. I think if we just stay this course, continue to focus on economic expansion through the job creators, the private sector, we're going to be very happy with the results. We're already seeing positive results.
Looking ahead to next session would be the so-called short session. Do you see a lot of work being left undone this session that will require a long short session?
Well, you know, in our revenue laws process, we're going to look at other things that we could potentially do to the taxation system to continue reform. Based on the numbers that come back, we'll have actual numbers. We'll have a better idea of how the economy is going to perform next year. We're going to have to spend a lot of time on figuring out what Obamacare does to us next year, what other delays may occur, what things we're going to have to live with, and how that affects the cost of reimbursement rates to doctors and hospitals, cost of insurance to individuals and businesses. Those are all the kinds of things we'll look at and make adjustments as necessary in the short session.
House Speaker Tom Tillis, thanks for being on this last legislative week in review. We're going to off session. I'll chase you on the road.
Great.
The community colleges will see a funding reduction based on changes in student enrollment rates. It's being asked to raise tuition rates and end the senior citizen tuition waiver. The university system will be making over $100 million in total budget cuts. $10 million reductions in administration. Instructional efficiencies claim nearly $16 million more dollars, while general UNC budget cuts will total another $66 million. UNC leaders cannot, by law, make across-the-board budget cuts to achieve the $66 million in savings.
Senate Minority Whip Josh Stein is here to discuss budget and tax reform. Two big bills in 2 weeks, Senator. What do you make of it?
Well, I think when you put the two bills together, you see the choice that this Republican General Assembly is making, which is against the interest of the people of North Carolina. They have a tax bill. In this budget, it's going to take $500 million out of the budget, which, not coincidentally, is how much they're cutting public education. So they've made a trade that we're going to take $500 million out of our public schools, out of our community colleges and universities, in order to give a tax cut, 65% of which goes to the wealthiest 1% of the people in the state, 90% of which goes to the wealthiest 5%. So we are taking it out of our schools and giving it to the wealthiest among us, those who have done well in this economy, even during the recession. It is the wrong choice.
Here's the bet. If we cut rates in this state, we put people who aren't working, people who may have lost their unemployment, back to work.
That is a trickle-down economic theory which has not proven to work throughout history. The Republican simple mantra is cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes. We tried it in the Bush administration and ended up with the worst recession in about 80 years since the Great Depression. So they are betting the future of North Carolina on giving a lot of money to a few very wealthy people. I think the right bet is to educate our people and give young people a chance to get the skills they need in order to be attractive employees so that companies come here, one, because they want our workforce, and two, because they want their kids to go to those schools.
You know, I listened to the Senate floor debate. It seems every other day you're barbing with a Republican, whether it's Senator Apodaca, Senator Tillman, about we're unwinding this mess you Democrats did for 100 years. How long will that argument hold sway with them, that they're undoing Democratic policies and placing their own in its stead, and they can own this bill, they can own this economy?
Well, I'm afraid they're starting to own the future, and it's not a pretty future. They're engaged in a race to the bottom, and I think we should be racing to try to get to the top, and I think they're making the wrong choice. They have a very simplistic worldview that because we went through a recession here in North Carolina, it is a result of the fact that Democrats ran the legislature, were in charge of the legislature, and there were Democratic governors, forgetting the fact that this was a national and global recession. I'm sorry, but whoever was in charge of the North Carolina Senate did not create the world recession.
There will be a branding war that goes on off session, that this budget increases spending and it projects increased government spending, versus the other side, the progressive liberal side, that will say these folks have cut $500 million. Which is it if you're just a regular guy who comes home from work, reads the paper, feeds his family?
The way we do budgets is you take into account what is inflation, because if inflation's going up and your salary stays the same, you're actually losing money. You're not making it ahead, you're falling behind. And by the way, teachers suffered about an 8.5% inflation rate over the last 5 years, just like the rest of the state. They've only gotten a 1.2% salary increase in that time period. So North Carolinians are falling behind just by staying even. The other thing is our state continues to grow. We have a lot of new people coming in. We have to educate kids. We have to put more people in community colleges. Frankly, we have to put more people in jail. All of that costs money. So when you factor in just those two things, inflation rate and population growth, they are taking out about $2.5 billion from the budget over the next 5 years. Here's the deal. This is on a level that's already a recession-era level budget. We lost about 5,000 teachers over the course of the recession. What their budget does is it locks in those lost jobs. We aren't adding teachers precisely when we should be. When you get out of the recession, you make up some of the ground you lost, and they're not doing that. They're giving these tax cuts to wealthy and to large out-of-state corporations, 90% of shareholders of which live outside North Carolina. That's who they're giving the tax cuts to.
Senator Josh Stein, thanks for being on Legislative Week in Review this season. We'll see you off session and probably have you on TV again real soon.
Thanks, Kelly.
The 2013-2014 budget will boost Medicaid spending by $300 million additional dollars while increasing Medicaid co-payments by the maximum allowed amounts. Hospitals will be paid a reduced reimbursement rate for treating people on an outpatient basis. That cut will be 12.5%. State commerce officials will launch a new Rural Economic Development Division, while the state will completely defund the North Carolina Rural Center. 5 minimum security prisons will be closing, but more magistrates and parole officers will be hired.
Becky Gray with the John Locke Foundation is here. $20.6 billion set the history around this bill compared to past budgets.
Well, it's a 2.3% increase. So I think the biggest thing about this, when you compare it to other budgets, just off the top, it's less of an increase that we've seen. What we're starting to see is a slowdown of government. Now, part of that is responsible for the recession. We don't have as much money coming in. You know, North Carolina's economy continues to be slow to recovery, but it's also a different philosophy here in Raleigh, I believe. With this General Assembly, this new administration, we're going to be seeing a scaling back, a rolling back, if you would, of government. And I think this budget and tax reform and some of the other things that they've done this session are indicative of that.
Why didn't Republicans outright cut the budget? They always talk budget cuts, but in reality, it's a slowdown of growth.
Right, and that is progress. Now, you say that, but Kelly, here's some of the differences that they've made in this budget year, and we've seen them building up to this over the last 2 years. In this budget, there's no new debt, there's no new taxes, And there also is a focus on replenishing those depleted reserve funds that we've had. So yes, on paper, I guess it's sort of an accounting question. They're spending the money, but they're putting it in different places.
What are you going to get out of this budget when you look at education funding?
What we're seeing in this education budget, I believe, is a focus on accountability, grading schools. Teacher tenure is being eliminated in lieu of teachers being under contract, their performance being evaluated on how the students are doing. Those kind of investments. It's a different way of looking at it. Again, accountability and measures.
Tax reform expected to slow down growth by almost $500 million, not this coming year, but in 2014, 2015. Is that in case there is no growth out of this budget economically in North Carolina?
Well, I think there is going to be growth out of this budget in North Carolina. I think there's going to be growth in North Carolina, let me say that. I think that this tax reform, which kudos to the General Assembly for doing that. You know, for 20 years we've looked at tax reform, study committees, academic studies, all kinds of things. Finally, we have got attention paid to a very outdated, cumbersome tax system. So I think that will be one of the things certainly that this session is going to be remembered for. I believe, and many economists agree with me, that tax cuts lead to a robust economy.
Thank you, Gray. John Locke Foundation, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Budget negotiators included $10 million in funding for the Eugenics Compensation Fund. And if you're a state employee, you'll be receiving 5 vacation days instead of a salary increase in 2013-2014. The budget bill is a multifaceted bill with lots of moving parts, much like the tax reform package announced by legislative leaders and Governor Pat McCrory last week.
Tazra Mitchell follows the budget for the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center. Thanks for being on Legislative Week in Review.
Thanks for having me.
Conservatives are very happy with this piece of legislation. They say it does cut, but it slows the rate of government growth, and that's a good thing.
Right, that's what they're saying. And, you know, the facts show that spending under this budget would be at a 4-decade low. So the whole concept of state spending being out of control, that is just not very accurate. And legislative leadership is correct to say that they slow the rate of spending because they slow the rate of dollars being brought in.
Does it just shorten the wish list for people who work in government that want more programs when you slow down the rate of growth? Is the wish list shorter, or is there no wish list at all going forward?
I don't necessarily think that there's a wish list. There's a high standard of being a legislator in North Carolina, and that standard demands that you make a very good balanced approach to the state budget as well as state dollars that fund that budget. And what this budget does is it doesn't keep up with current service levels. So you talk about a wish list. I'm not sure that maintaining current service levels is necessarily a wish list.
Do you think those tax cuts will stimulate the economy, because that's the goal, so say legislative GOP leaders?
Let's look at 6 states that passed these deep tax cuts in the early 1990s. You know, after they passed that, what happened? Their state economies grew a whole lot slower than the states that didn't pursue those deep tax cuts.
What else do businesses look for? If it's not low taxes, which we hear really does make business bubble, what else are they looking for?
They're looking for an educated workforce. So when you see that they are cutting education, they're cutting teacher assistants and teachers, they're ending tenure, states, salaries for teachers are barely a living wage for many teachers and their families. And all of this matters because it really impacts the classroom experience for our children. And then when you look at the community colleges and the UNC system, this budget raises tuition, making it harder especially for low-income students and moderate-income students to access higher education. So businesses certainly look forward to an educated workforce. It's not just low taxes. It's a very small part.
Tazra Mitchell.
Thank you.
North Carolina Budget and Tax Center. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Legislators approved energy exploration legislation that does a few things, sets a schedule for rules making and permit issuing, but stops short of greenlighting actual drilling and fracking.
Senate Bill 76 is also called the Domestic Energy Jobs Act. It focuses on setting the rules that oil and gas companies will follow when they're allowed to drill in North Carolina, and if these companies decide energy exploration is a viable activity in our state.
We want to send a strong message to the industry that North Carolina is moving in the right direction, and this bill will be a step forward.
Senate Bill 76 will allow state environmental officials to issue drilling permits, but require that state lawmakers pass a separate piece of legislation to activate those permits. The fracking and drilling regulations are still being written, but face a 2014 deadline. Some coastal county Democrats said this week they are uneasy about setting the stage for fracking and drilling and being asked to approve such a big piece of legislation with no regulations in place they can review that govern energy exploration.
$1.2 billion is the economy of just Dare and Currituck for our tourism economy. And we are being asked to take a risk of $1.2 billion for what, in the changes that have been made, is about 8% would go to ports and also towards environmental activities on the coast.
We've got a strong economy that's built on a clean coast, and despoiling our coast for a couple of months' oil supply that may reduce gas prices by a penny 10 years down the road is hardly worth it.
Republicans who've sought more legislation to create an in-state energy exploration sector say Senate Bill 76 represents progress without environmental sacrifice.
I think we have a good plan in place. I think if you read the bill, it shows what our intentions are once we do have revenue sharing, and how we will protect the coast and the people of the coast.
Pieces of Senate Bill 76 began taking effect in 2013. State regulations need to be approved by October 2014, with the March 2015 permitting process opening just 5 months later.
The 2013 legislature's final days renewed the simmering debate between Republicans and Democrats over voter ID. The Senate pushed a late and more restrictive bill that House leaders had passed, setting the stage for election law changes that would occur later this decade.
Senate Republicans pushed an omnibus voting and elections bill that includes voter ID provisions, elections law updates, and reduces the time frame for early voting.
What we have is reforms to introduce transparency to the election process and to create guidelines that everyone can understand very clearly and simply. It also gives every opportunity to eliminate any type of political gamesmanship.
State officials could receive the power to dictate when and if local voting precincts extend voting hours due to unforeseen circumstances. The voter ID provisions in this bill revise what is acceptable in terms of ID, namely that university and college ID cards would not be accepted. Same-day voter registration would end statewide, as would straight ticket voting and the state's program to pre-register 16 and 17-year-olds to vote.
We want kids to take civics, but when 50,000 of them want to exercise and put into practice their civic obligations, we're saying to them, you can't do that anymore.
The elections bill calls for phasing out digital-only voting machines and requiring every state ballot to be paper-based by the year 2018. Tax filers could no longer support their political party on their state income tax returns. Republicans say their voting changes will place North Carolina in step with many other U.S. states while updating elections laws that haven't changed in decades.
We've got a good bill. We've got a bill that ensures integrity of the voting place. It increases voter turnout, and it increases voter integrity. And you keep bringing up voter ID as if it's going to suppress votes. The fact is, it increases votes in nearly every state that's done it.
Those arguments don't satisfy Democrats from accusing the GOP of suppressing the votes of people who are likely to vote Democratic.
If we look at this bill in its totality, it's all about suppressing the vote, trying to make certain that those who we may not want to see come out and vote do not have an opportunity to do so.
This final legislation contains many provisions that have been publicly discussed yet have received no votes, but it also adopts many House-backed bills that will change the way elections operate in North Carolina.
Second Amendment supporters saw legislators vote to change gun laws in our state. The omnibus bill is a collection of individual proposals rolled into one. Supporters say work is still needed, but this is a positive step. Opponents agree it's a step in the wrong direction.
Republicans pushed ahead with firearms legislation that loosens state laws on where guns may be carried as long as they're handled responsibly by licensed gun owners.
We have continued working through these issues with stakeholders. We've We've continued working with sheriffs. We have addressed their concerns in this bill. We've addressed the concerns of members.
House Bill 937 would allow gun storage and possession on college campuses.
What this bill does is not the end of the world. I'm not going to predict dire consequences in and of the bill itself. I do have some serious concerns, though, about what the future will bring.
It'd be a lot more scary to me to think of a Virginia Tech situation in which a criminal comes on campus, he doesn't care about what the gun laws are, and starts shooting up the place, and there's nobody, no professor, no student, no staff person that could stop that.
Concealed carry permit holders can bring their firearms into businesses that serve alcoholic drinks as long as the gun owner consumes no alcohol, which would make gun possession a crime.
I also know that when someone drinks, regardless of how safe they are in their personal lives and regardless of how conscious and good they are in their personal lives, bad things happen when people get drunk.
Responsible people generally are the ones that have concealed carry. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to ruin what they know is a good constitutional right.
There are many provisions of House Bill 937, but lawmakers focused on the guns in restaurants and the guns on college campuses provisions. Not discussed as much as the privatization of gun permit information, restrictions to be placed on county sheriff's control of issuing gun permits, and permission given to hunters who hunt with silencers, as well as increased penalties for people who commit crimes using guns. The bill authorizing new state abortion policies is poised to become law. The Senate accepted that House plan to allow state health officials to rewrite state abortion rules. Abortion coverage will be restricted for policies sold by the health insurance exchanges and for employee policies offered by local governments. Critics say this bill restricts abortion access and it breaks Governor McCrory's campaign pledge. A sweeping regulatory reform bill was cleared to become law earlier this week. It limits county government's ability to set special conditions on vendors who must meet those conditions to bid on work. Universities could not discriminate against fraternities and sororities it refuses to recognize. Private companies can give veterans and their spouses preferred hiring status, and state environmental officials would study whether or not vehicle emissions testing is still relevant in our state. It's been a pleasure bringing you Legislative Week in Review for the 2013 season. I'll still be covering the issues for the UNC-TV network and its programs. If you have comments or questions, email us directly, legweek@unctv.org, or find me on Twitter by searching my name. Thanks for watching this season. We'll see you really soon.
Quality public television is made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.